Hey guys, this video lesson goes over angle relationships. Make sure you have these notes open so as I go through this video you can be completing them as well. Alright, we're going to start off with a bunch of vocab terms. Make sure you fill in where it's highlighted yellow, and then your example is right next to it. So the first one we're going to talk about is intersecting lines. So go ahead and type those. So intersecting lines are lines that cross one another. So notice in the example, there's two lines, they crisscross. It's kind of like a road, right? So right there in the middle is the intersection. Second one is parallel lines. So parallel lines, so if you look at that example, those are two straight lines that no matter how far they go, they will never intersect, they'll never meet. Next term is perpendicular lines. So these are two or more lines that intersect each other at a right angle. So our perpendicular line here, I'll highlight it for us. That would be this line right here and this line right here. Notice they create a right angle, which they also drew that little box there for you. Remember, that means a right angle, 90 degrees right there. Okay, so those are our perpendicular lines. Next we have straight angles. All right, straight angles, they are always 180 degrees. So anytime you have a straight line, it's 180 degrees, which makes sense if you think about it. I'm gonna look at this example all the way on the right. So that is half of a circle. Well, we should know by now a full circle is 360 degrees. So a straight line halfway around a circle would be 180. So that's a straight angle. Next vocab term is vertical angles. They are angles that are opposite to each other when the lines cross. So opposite angles are congruent. Congruent, remember, means equal. So when you have crisscrossing lines like this or intersecting lines like we just talked about, opposite angles are congruent. So B is going to be the same as D. My angle is going to be the same no matter which one. So if I said angle B was 21 degrees, well, my vertical angle D is also going to be 21 degrees. And then same thing going the other way. Angle A and angle C will be congruent or equal. So whatever angle A is, angle C will be as well. Next up, we have complementary angles. They are at least two angles that add up to 90 degrees. So remember, we talked about that little 90-degree angle. Here we actually have two angles that are adding up, but it could be more, right? We could split this again and have another angle there and another angle there. You can have multiple angles, but it's at least two. All right, so we said complementary angles add up to 90 degrees. Well, supplementary angles are at least two angles that add up to 180 degrees. So remember, we said a straight angle is 180, so that would be this whole straight line right there. That whole thing will be 180 degrees. So a straight angle is also called a supplementary angle. So notice this one is split into two parts, one of the parts being 50, the other parts being 130. So supplementary angles are the same thing as a straight angle. Supplementary just has at least two angles that are adding up to that total 180 degrees. So complementary and supplementary are two things that a lot of people mix up, but a couple ways to remember it is, well, first, in 90 degrees, you can't write an S, and this is what I mean by that. We use our C to put a C right in our 9. So there's my C, and then I can draw an S in my 8. So you can't draw an S in a 9. So that's one way to help. Second way to help is, remember, C comes before S in the alphabet. 90 is less than 180, right? 90 comes before 180 on a number line. So C, complementary, comes before S, supplementary. 90 degrees comes before 180 on a number line. Two ways you can help yourself remember those. All right, so let's take a look at this diagram above. It says in the diagram, angles 3 and 6, so I'm going to highlight 3 and 6, and then also 4 and 5 are what we call supplementary angles, right? They form that straight line right down the middle right there. We also have perpendicular lines shown in our figure. So fill in supplementary angles. So if they form a straight line, then the sum of angle 3 and angle 6 has to be 180, right? Straight lines, straight angles, and also supplementary angles all equal 180 degrees. So same thing, the sum of angle 4 and 5 has to equal 180 because we already said they are supplementary angles, which means they add up to 180 degrees. All right, I'm actually going to have us practice with this. So let's look at number 1 here. We have B and we have 126 degrees. So our goal is to find angle B. So if we look at this, we actually have a straight angle here, right there. Or we can think about it, we have supplementary angles so that both these two, B plus 126, should equal 180 degrees. So we can treat it like an equation to solve for B. So we just said 126 plus B needs to equal 180. Now that's just a one-step equation. We can draw our line straight down the middle. In order to get B by itself, I need to subtract 126 from both sides. When you do this, you should get B equals 54. I'm going to put my little degree symbol because we're talking angles, and that should be your units there. And then number 2, notice we have intersecting lines here. So, whoop. So intersecting lines, remember when we have those intersect, that creates our vertical angles. So vertical angles B and 45, well, if you think back to your definitions, vertical angles are congruent, which means they're the exact same. So that means B equals 45 degrees because of vertical angles. Okay, so why don't I write that? These are vertical angles. And over here, these were supplementary. That'll just help us as we practice in the future. All right, next one, we are still finding angle B. So notice on this one, they're trying to create this whole circle. So they gave us 300 degrees. And then they gave us this little 22, so plus 22. And then they gave us little b, which we need to solve for. And we have to remember that a whole circle, a full circle all the way around equals 360. So again, this is just an equation we can solve for b. Make sure you combine like terms first. So 300 plus 22 is 322. Bring everything else down and now solve it like a normal equation. Subtract 322 from both sides. You should get b equals 38. And again, put your little degree symbol because we're talking angles. Number 4, we see that little box in the corner, which tells me that is a 90-degree angle. So what adds up to 90 degrees? Well, complementary angles add up to 90 degrees. So those two angles, 27 and B, are complementary, meaning they need to add up to 90. So solve it like a normal equation. Subtract 27, subtract 27. That means B is going to equal 63 degrees. All right, next one, we can see that straight line right there going right down. So those two angles are supplementary, right? They create a straight line, so they equal 180 degrees when added together. So B plus 48 equals 180. Treat it like an equation, solve it. So subtract 48, subtract 48. When you do this, you should get B equals 132 degrees. Number 6 over here, we see intersecting lines. Intersecting lines create vertical angles. Vertical angles are congruent or equal. So B should equal 61 degrees right there. Last but not least, so number 7, we're solving for x this time, so it does get a little bit more complicated, but I still see vertical angles and intersecting lines right there. So remember, vertical angles are equal. So in order to solve for x on this one, We know vertical angles are equal, so 4x has to equal 64. We're still treating this like a normal equation. So on this one, we need to divide by 4 on both sides to get x by itself. And that's a 4, sorry. To get x equals 16. Now, it's not a degrees because they weren't asking for the angle, they were just asking for what x is. And then number 8, they were asking for x and then the measure of angle B. So this is going to be a two-step problem. So if you look, we have a straight angle right there. Straight angle, these make supplementary angles. So we know that x plus 2x has to equal 180 degrees, right? Those two angles combined have to equal 180. So solve it like normal equation, combine like terms first. 3x equals 180, divide by 3, divide by 3. So x equals 60. Now again, it's not a degrees because it wasn't the angle length. Now to find the measure of angle B, well, let's find angle B on our chart. Angle B is right here. So we know that is 2 times my x value. So measure of angle B is 2x. Well, guess what? We just found what x is. So the measure of angle B is 2 times 60, which 2 times 60 is 120. So the measure of angle B, after we found our x value, we figured out was 120 degrees.